welcome to everybody again. So my name is Noelle Kreidler, and I'm an Associate Director for Career Development and Campus Integration, and I work primarily with business and entrepreneurship students at Santa Clara University. And I've been here for about 3.5 years, and I'm excited to present with my colleague, Demetria Quijada, and I'll let her go ahead and introduce herself.
Yes, thank you, Noelle. My name is Demetria Quijada. I'm a grad student currently, and I'm an intern at the Career Center in Career Development. And I work with students on reviewing resumes and cover letters and working on LinkedIn profiles. And then I also go into classrooms and do workshops like this one as well. And yes, we're so excited to share some info about updating your resume and LinkedIn profiles.
All righty. So this is what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about resume tips and suggestions, and then we'll also cover LinkedIn tips and suggestions, and we'll have some Career Center resources and other resources that we share throughout. So I'm going to kick us off with the resume portion, and Demetria is going to talk about the LinkedIn portion. And between the two of those, we'll also talk about Career Center resources and other resources for both of those things as we speak. And then we'll have some final thoughts, and we'll take kind of Q&A throughout and again at the end. So again, any questions that you have, feel free to put them in the chat, and Demetria will be monitoring that as I'm speaking, and then I will do the same for her. All right, so resumes. So as you're updating your resume, there are a couple things that I want you to kind of think about. And there are really three, and I'm going to go through each one of these in the next few slides. The first is, what do you need to update on your resume? So that's the very first thing. And then how are you going to update your resume? And we're going to talk about some ways to do that. And then finally, who are you sending your resume to? So that's what we're going to discuss on the resume end. And I will start with what you need to update on your resume. So think about, is there content that could be removed? So for some of you, maybe you're a senior and you've got some information from high school on there now that maybe isn't really as relevant anymore. And so you might want to take that off. Or you've got some older experiences that you had, either maybe your first couple years of school or even in high school or before, that just don't really make as much sense to have on there anymore. So you might want to consider taking those. So that's the first thing, is what can go away. And then the second is, what information could you add? So maybe you have a 3.0 or above GPA, and your GPA has changed, and so you need to update it in some way. Or you've had a new role or a new job this summer, and you want to make sure that you're capturing that information. You also may have changed your major, or maybe your grad date has changed in some way. Maybe you're going to get finished earlier, or maybe you're going to get finished later. So that's something that you want to make sure that you add. And then maybe you've had some relevant coursework that would really help you, like say next summer, you're starting to think about internships for the next summertime. And you need to add some relevant coursework to your resume so that it puts you in the best light, and that you are able to showcase that in some way. So that might help you get a job. You also may have completed some projects that you're particularly proud of and that would showcase your experience. So that might be another thing that you might want to think about adding. You also may have some new awards or other accomplishments that you want to add to your resume. So those are just some of the things that you might want to think about as you're thinking about kind of what you need to update. Then it's really more about, how are you going to do this? So I really think it kind of falls into like 6 buckets, and I'm going to go through each one for you so that you kind of think about it that way. So the first one is, if you don't already have a master resume, you want to create a master resume for yourself. A master resume is really kind of an all extensive inclusion of all your skills and experience, and it's in one document. So this isn't the document that you're going to send out to an employer or use to apply for a job. This is a place where you kind of have everything in pretty good shape, but you can use it later on to pick and choose what you want to put on a resume that you're going to send out for an actual job. So it really kind of makes it easier for you to tailor your resume when you send something out. And it also helps you to not forget experiences or accomplishments, because you might not use, most likely you won't use the same resume for everything that you do. If some of you may apply for jobs in very different industries, like you might be a marketing major, but you're interested in sales and you're interested in something related to potentially the web or social media marketing or something like that. And so you might want to talk about different experiences based on that. And so you might use a different resume for each one, but you can keep it all in one place so you can pull stuff together. So for myself, I have a master resume. And if I look for jobs, there are 3 different areas that I usually will apply to. And my resume will look different for each one, but I always go back to my master resume to see what I want to use. Okay. So this isn't the one where you worry about how long it is. This is the one where you put everything. Okay. And again, if you have any questions as I'm going through, just make sure you put them in the chat. All right. The next number 2 would be to use accomplishment statements. So there are all kinds of acronyms. The one we use at the Santa Clara Career Center is the acronym CAR, which stands for Context, Action, and Result. So with the context, you're really describing the situation or the problem. And then the action is really specifically, what did you do? And then the result is where you're telling us what happened, and then you're also quantifying where you can. Numbers are always helpful. And when you think about putting numbers on your resume, I always tell people to write the number, not the word. Forget English grammar that says if it's over the number 10, you write it out. You use the number, and under 10, you spell it out. I say on a resume, write all numbers out, because somebody's going to spend 10 to 15 seconds looking at your resume, and you want to make sure that the things that can jump out quickly will jump out quickly. And a number jumps out more quickly than a word, because it's the universal language. So here's an example of an accomplishment statement that might work for you to kind of use to help you. So the context of the particular thing this person's writing on their resume is a lack of formal training for new employees to effectively manage customer service questions at the front desk. And the action is that a manual was created with frequently asked questions for new employees. And the result was that efficiently trained new employees. So to write this from an accomplishment perspective, we responded to lack of customer service training by creating manual with 15 frequently asked questions for new employees, resulting in 20% increase in customer satisfaction at the front desk. So that's kind of how you know people were effectively trained. If you were measuring customer satisfaction, you could actually use that as something to put on your resume. The third, and this is pretty easy to talk about, is to really use powerful action words. So here's just kind of a word cloud of potential action words you might think about. And I would try to vary the words that you use. I know for myself, I get kind of caught up in about 4 or 5 of the same ones. And so I'm always going through and trying to figure out how I can change them around. So you certainly don't want to be using the same words over and over, the same action words over and over and over for every statement. You might be able to get away with using them a few times, but you certainly don't want them right next to each other. So think about that and get some help from others if you have a hard time coming up with an action word that would be helpful for you to use to describe your experience. The next one is to really organize your resume effectively. So when I think about this, certainly as a college student, you're going to school, pretty much what's going to happen for now, and this will change later, is that your education is going to be at the top of your resume. But you may want to include some other things in that section. Like, for an example, this person decided that relevant coursework was really important because they were looking for a job where these things were were related. They also put laboratory skills, and they also talked about their computer work, like right up at the top of their resume. So that may not be what you decide to do, but that is something that this person decided to do based on the job that they were looking for. They also delineated between related experience and other experience. So sometimes when I'm working with a student, they may have a related experience that they've had over the summer, and then they go back to their student job, which is not necessarily related to what they want to do, but it pays the bills. So I encourage students to separate their experience into different categories so that they can highlight the most important things at the top. Remember that 10 to 15 second rule where an employer is going to spend, a recruiter is going to spend 10 to 15 seconds. You want the most important things at the top of your resume. So that's definitely something to think about. And the great thing is if you separate it by heading, you will put things in order based on chronological order. So reverse chronological order. So the most recent goes at the top by heading. So that is always helpful if you want to showcase something that you've done this summer and have it be first in your experience section. Then you might want to think about, could a summary statement be helpful? So what is a summary statement? And this is an optional statement that you could have at the top of your resume. It's usually 3 to 5 sentences, and it goes before your education. It kind of sets the tone for what the recruiter or hiring manager is going to see on your resume. And it's really an overview of your experience that kind of helps you stand out in some way. And it's most effective when you have a lot of experience that's related to a job, or you want to highlight certain experience at the top of your resume. So you might repeat a little bit of things that you're going to see later on in your resume, but at least it gets it to the top. And then oftentimes when you have a degree or experience that doesn't quite match the job description, you may have some other things you want to say in a summary statement that would help you stand out in some way. As you get older and go through and apply for jobs later on in your career, you will most likely have some sort of a summary statement or a professional summary or something like that. It's more common when you get further along in your career, but for some people, it helps them when they're in college. And it's especially helpful when you're making a career change. So I've just provided some other possible heading names for summary statements. So you might see like professional summary, summary of qualifications, professional qualifications. There's really no right answer, but just to give you some general ideas of some other things that you might call this particular section. Here are some examples of a powerful summary statement. So the first example is more related to a business type major. And the second example is more related to somebody that's like in the STEM field. So, successful salesperson majoring in marketing, highly involved in marketing club and salespeople for change, adept at learning and applying new sales techniques, maintain a 3.8 GPA while working 20 hours per week and carrying a full course load. So you get a sense of this is a summary statement is not, I'm good with people and I like people. It's got a punch to it. It kind of sets the tone. It gets people's attention and it makes them want to read on. So next is, who are you sending your resume to? So you kind of want to know the following when you think about this. So at this point, we've talked about maybe what you need to add or take away, how you can do that. And now it's more about the tailoring side of it. So you really want to think about who is your audience, what are their hiring needs, and how your skills and experience align with what they're looking for. And the one great way to do that is really by reading and analyzing the job description, but also conducting some summary of some company research and reviewing profiles on LinkedIn may also really help. So we're going to spend just a moment talking about the job description for a second, because that's the piece where it plays a critical role potentially on your resume. So really, job descriptions help you tailor your resume to the job. And they also will indicate the applicant tracking system keyword searches that a recruiter or company may be using when they're looking at your resume. So a lot of companies, in case you're not aware, use ATS or applicant tracking systems to search for folks that have the skills and qualifications for the job. And then from there, those people that make it through the ATS system will get contacted for the first round of an interview. So you really want to make it through the first round of an ATS if you can, because then a human is going to see your resume and then it becomes a more personalized experience. So you want to be paying attention to the keywords and phrases that might be in a job description. This by no means is an extensive list, but it just gives you a sense of some of the things that you might want to be thinking about. And then you want to make sure to include those keywords and phrases wherever possible on your resume. So I just took an example of a job description, the qualification sections of one, and I just kind of put out a few things that I talked about or circled so that you can kind of see what somebody might be looking for. So master's degree in accounting, that would be good to put on your resume if you have that. If you've taken some sort of an individual taxation class, they're looking for a particular GPA. If you've taken the CPA exam, so you kind of get a sense of some of the things that might be keywords or at least areas that you want to focus on your resume so that it is tailored to the job that you're applying for. I see a hand raised. I'm going to take some questions in a minute. If you could go ahead and put your question in the chat for Demetria, that would be really helpful. So I'm going to move on and talk about some other Career Center resources, some Career Center and other resources, and so that you kind of know what we have here. Sorry, my slides keep going quickly. So the first is through our Career Center, and everybody on this call has access to this. We have a job prep toolkit, and I'm going to take you out there right now, but this is what it looks like. If I can move people around here and get to it. So this is the job prep toolkit. And under the Craft Your Personal Brand, we have a link called Resume. I'll point out a couple of things here so that you can use these later on. One is just the resume link itself, which kind of talks about resumes, some of the things we're talking about right now. It has a good anatomy of a resume, so some things you might want to think about looking at here. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is our resume and cover letter guide. A lot of people all over the country use this, so it's a very effective tool. And it talks a lot about, it has a resume checklist, the best fonts, action verbs, the CAR method, which we spoke about earlier. And then it also gives you some information on different types of resumes. So if we took like a humanities resume, here's an example of one, if it will open for me. So you can see kind of some things that you might be thinking about. So you can use this guide to help you as you're updating the resume that you have right now. So if I go back to our slides, the next thing I just wanted to point out, there's a resource called the Muse. I specifically pulled the link for resumes, but you might want to check out, they also have really great interviewing information. The Muse is a great resource for all kinds of job search related work. So I would highly recommend you check out that resource. And that is not particular to Santa Clara, it's just out there for the world. The other is something called JobScan, and it is .co, not .com, so I didn't forget an M. As I thought I did originally. But this tool allows you to analyze your resume against job descriptions and then optimize keywords and really improve your chances of getting through a company's ATS system. So Santa Clara is going to be adopting the unlimited JobScan version. this fall, and there'll be an email coming out to those of you who are Santa Clara students very soon. And then there's also a free version for those of you who aren't with Santa Clara that you can use to upload 5 job descriptions per month. So you'll be comparing your resume to the job descriptions, and it tells you how you can optimize what's on your resume so that you get through the ATS systems. So you might want to check with your school to see if they use JobScan if you're not a Santa Clara student. And with that, I'm going to see if there are any questions. And Demetria, has anybody put some things in there?
Yes, we have a question about VMOC being discontinued and yeah, what that is looking like.
So the final word, VMOC will be discontinued if you're a Santa Clara student. This only applies to Santa Clara students. VMOC will be discontinued. We're not sure if it's going to be discontinued finally at the end of August or at the end of November. We're still waiting word from the vendor. So if you have a resume that you've, or resumes that you have posted in VMOC, I suggest that you download them so that you can get to them. And then we will be going to JobScan, which is a little bit of a different tool. We also have a tool called Big Interview that has a resume writing component, and we're looking into that to see if that can substitute for some of the things that VMOC has been doing. So more word on that, and we will be sending out more information about the switch over, but that is what's going on. Great question, and thanks for asking.
Thank you, Noelle. And then we also have another question. Is it okay for some of the keywords to not be addressed in the resume, but answered in the application? For example, work authorization?
Yes, that is okay. Yes, that is okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And then there was a question about where to gain access to the resume guide doc, which I did put in the chat, but it is on our Career Center website in the job prep toolkit and in that resume section.
Perfect. Thanks for doing that.
Mm-hmm. And do we have any other questions before we move into LinkedIn? We do have one. What if the agency I'm applying to is a partner of my current agency and they know me? Should I address in my resume or application?
Say that one again.
What if the agency I'm applying to is a partner of my current agency and they know me? Should I address in my resume or application?
Well, on your resume, I would think that if you're working there, you're addressing it because it should be listed in your job, your experience section. So I'm not sure if that covers it. If not, you might want to mention something in a cover letter. So we are not talking about cover letters today, but we do have resources on our website in that link that was provided by Demetria. So you might want to think about how you might address that in a cover letter situation. I'm not sure if that answers it. It sounds like it might be more specific, but.
Mm-hmm. And yes, they said that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
And then just 2 more questions we have. How many different resumes does one typically make as an engineering major?
I don't think there's a typical number. So it might be that you tweak one sentence on a resume. And that's the only thing that's different from one resume to another. For others, it might be that you move a section around. So it really depends on the job description. So sometimes one resume will work for a lot of different things, and sometimes you really do need to tweak stuff. So there's not like a final number.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then what is the difference between a master resume and a regular resume?
So a master resume is everything you've done, basically. It's kind of like the kitchen sink. But it's written in a great way so that all you have to do when you use that information to create your final resume that you're going to send, you can just cut and paste information into another document. So that's the difference. It can be as long as it needs to be. For most of you, 1 page will be the length of the resume that you're going to be sending for an application. For those of you who have a little bit more experience and maybe in a master's program, it might be a 2-page resume. But for most of you, it'll be a 1-page resume, whereas a master resume, you're not really concerned about the number of pages. You're concerned about capturing all of your experience in one place.
Okay, thank
Yes, you
you.
do not send out a master resume. I can see that. You do not send that out. No.
And one last final question is, how long should it ideally take to fill out an application?
I don't know the answer to that. Depends on the application. Some applications, especially if you're applying for a government job, might be very, very long, and others might be very quick. So every company does what they need to do. And I don't have any, I have no idea. I mean, it could be as long as 3 hours, it could be 30 minutes, it could be 10 minutes, hard to say. And once you've done one, save whatever you've put together so that if you come across another one that's really long, you can use that information the next time around. All right, I think I should turn it over to you.
Great,
Don't you
thank
think?
you. Yeah, I think we're ready
Okay.
to get to LinkedIn.
All right, thanks everybody for the great questions. Appreciate it.
Okay. Let's see, so I will share my screen. Okay, we will be talking about LinkedIn, more so going over the specific sections of LinkedIn, and yeah, just how to best optimize the website. And so there are a few different things that I will be going over, as well as looking at the profile. So also just looking at it from the networking standpoint as well. And just to get started, this is just to show some information about how a majority of jobs are found. So it's showing here that 80% of jobs are found through what is called the hidden job market. And so that can be from friends, people that you know, or it could be by doing informational interviews and reaching out to people through LinkedIn to get to know people that way. And then having them kind of be an internal advocate for you. And so that is just how a majority of jobs are gotten. And so we want to make sure that your LinkedIn profile is really highlighting you at your best. So a lot of it can kind of come from like your resume and yeah, just like your accomplishments. You want to be showing that. Here is like your virtual professional brochure on your LinkedIn. So and it's going to be yeah, showing you in the best light there. So starting from the top of your LinkedIn profile, we're going to talk about the professional headshot and then also the background photo. So the photo itself, it doesn't need to be too fancy. You don't need to go out of your way to have somebody pay somebody to take professional photos for you. It can be somebody's just taking a photo for you, but there's a few things you can keep in mind. So just making sure that it's a clear, visually clear photo of yourself, not like something blurry. And then also just making sure that there's no clutter or anything distracting in the background there for what's behind you. And then also making sure it's like a warm photo, or maybe you're smiling in it, just so you seem approachable and people you know, are going to seem to want to interact with you. And then also lastly, another thing to think about for the photo is if your clothing is showing in the photo, just making sure that it's appropriate, that it's something that you would maybe wear into the office. So those are some high-level tips to think about there. And then also, this is a workshop about updating your profile. So maybe your last photo was taken a year or two ago. So maybe it's time maybe to have a new photo be taken of you. And then also there is some data that shows that people with a photo of themselves are 7 times more likely to be found by a recruiter through LinkedIn. So it's really important that like if you're gonna make a profile, make sure that it's filled out completely, and it'll have a lot better engagement because of that. And then the background photo, this can be something that represents you in some way, has some kind of significance to you. Maybe it's like the company that you are super passionate about and would love to work for. Maybe it's like a product of theirs, or maybe it can be, maybe you really want to work in San Francisco, so you have a picture of the Golden Gate Bridge there. So those are some options that you can do, or maybe you're in education and you have a setting of a classroom in the background there. So it really just gives some insight into who you are, and people can just learn from that by seeing that. And then I have this resource here. It's called pexels.com. And so you could just find stock images there, and an easy, good resource to do that. And then your headline is going to be a really important piece of your LinkedIn profile. You will want to make sure that this is rich with keywords. So kind of like Noelle talked about, making sure that you have keywords in there, you can do something similar here. And so from the examples here, they kind of have some descriptive words about them: driven financial analyst or creative content specialist. Oops. And then, yeah, so maybe like speaking to what are some of your strengths that you want people to know about you, you can think about that. And I think it's also a helpful exercise when you're thinking about this, like to think about what are your strengths and what do you want people to know you for. A lot of times when you're on LinkedIn and you have any interaction on LinkedIn, it kind of shows your headline a lot of the time. So it's really attached to your name. So what do you want people to know you for? Just think about that. And then also the keywords like content specialist or financial analyst. Maybe you're not in that field yet, but you would like to be. So making sure that you have those words somewhere on your profile is important. Or maybe you say something like passionate about content, creative content writing, or something like that. So just making sure that you are using this space as best as you can. And then your about section. This is also another place where you can use those keywords. It can also be sort of like your professional summary statement, but also you can remember that you are not bound to just one page on your LinkedIn. So you can freely write more than that. And you can give some more context about things that are important to you, or even examples here like what do you like to do outside of work, or how does what you do outside connect to the work that you do. Maybe you really like have hobbies where you interact with a lot of people and how that kind of comes into the work that you do. So, yeah, just speaking to who you are and also what big accomplishments you have, you can do that here. In the example here, Max talks about his work being in Salesforce and also being in having leadership experiences to finding his own business and yeah, just goes through a certain amount of experiences that he has that he would like to share with others. And then lastly, you can do a call to action, making sure that people have that opportunity to reach out to you if they are interested in learning more about you, or maybe they would like to connect you with somebody, or they just want to ask about your experience. So it's a great idea to just leave your information down there as well. And then going into the experience section, you can take what you have from your resume and put it on here, making sure to just fill out the bullet points. Sometimes a mistake that people make is just not having any of information about the work that they've done there. And it's just kind of a missed opportunity to share the work that you did. And you also don't need to have it in like the way that you write it in a resume. You can do first person language on your LinkedIn profile. It's just not as formal of writing as a resume is. So that's also something to keep in mind. And then also another thing that you can do is connect your work to your profile. So just linking any projects that you have on here is a great opportunity for people to see that work directly. And also, like your resume, you could just keep in mind doing like accomplishment-based statements. So using the CAR method, you can use that here as well. And then in the skills section, you can have up to 50 skills. You can rearrange them so that your top 3 skills are shown on your profile page, or if not, they're just like you have to open up a tab to see the rest of your skills. So you can rearrange them so that your most marketable ones are shown there, right there on the page. And then also, I think when you're looking at job descriptions that you're interested in, you can also just, you want to reflect on which skills that you do have from that and then make sure that it's on your profile, not just blindly just picking skills that you know that they want, but maybe you don't really have them. I don't suggest that. I think that you should really yeah, just reflect on the skills that you do have and you know that they're looking for, and make sure that those are on your profile. Another section that you can have is the recommendations. So it's always a great idea to ask a former boss or your current boss, or maybe just somebody who's worked with you, or maybe a professor, to have them write you a recommendation on LinkedIn. It's just a way that people can vouch for your work and, make sure that people can yeah, just really see that you work well with other people and that somebody took the time to do this for you. Something that's helpful that you can do is kind of write up a short blurb about what maybe you want for somebody to mention about you in the recommendation, and kind of just makes their job easier. But yeah, it's always a great idea to get recommendations. And then I was just going to show a resource here. Excuse me. If you go to the job prep toolkit again, in the Build Your Professional Network, we have career conversations, and this is just a great tool. all of the information here is really helpful, but I just wanted to go to the templates that we have here. So LinkedIn has a character limit usually for reaching out to people. So here's a short LinkedIn message example. If you wanted to reach out to somebody and connect with somebody or learn more about what they do, or you just want to be connected to this person, you can send a short message and maybe asking for 15 minutes to chat with them. Something short and simple is usually the best way to go. And then just like making that personal connection, having a face-to-face or a Zoom conversation can be really helpful and just help you in your networking and building your network. So we have a lot of great resources on our job prep toolkit. And then lastly, I just wanted to show the LinkedIn alumni tool that we have here. So if you go to Santa Clara University or any page that, any school page that you may have gone to, you can go to alumni, and then you can find people by area or maybe like what they studied. And I always really like going into people's profiles and kind of looking at how they got to where they are. So especially looking at those entry-level jobs that they started with. And then that kind of gives me an idea for roles that I might want to look for. And then if I find somebody interesting that I'd like to talk to, then I will send a connect and then type a short message to them. But yeah, so that's a really great tool to find alumni to reach out to. They're usually very willing to help other fellow alumni or current students, so they are a great resource to reach out to. And yes, so that's what we have for LinkedIn. And yes, please let me know if you have any questions.
I don't see anything in the chat. So does anybody have any questions about LinkedIn, updating your LinkedIn? Going once? Here we go. When reaching out to people on LinkedIn, is it best to send a request to connect and then afterwards send a personalized message, or only send a personalized message?
I usually just send the request with the personalized message, the short version of the message, and then going from there.
So it's that if you can you go back to that slide you were, or the place on our site where you were showing the LinkedIn messaging? That might help this person understand. And I can also put it in the chat.
So just kind of stating like maybe what common thread you have with that person, I think is a good place to start. And then or yeah, and then just asking if they have the chance to chat, and maybe they will accept your connect, but maybe not reply, but maybe they will reply, and then you'll be able to have that conversation.
Is there any other questions that anybody has about LinkedIn, updating your LinkedIn profile? If someone doesn't respond to an initial message, should you reach out again?
Yeah, I would say if that is really somebody that you would like to learn from or get information from, I think sometimes people just miss messages. Mistakes can happen like that. People are human. So I think uh, sending out another message, but um, not too many messages, I would say.
I'd also give them a couple of days to respond to, like, maybe if you don't hear from them in 5 or 6 days, then message again. I'd also try to pick people that you can tell are kind of on LinkedIn. Like, I know a lot of professionals that have a LinkedIn profile and they have a lot of connections, but they're never on LinkedIn. And if I send them a message through LinkedIn and I know them, they don't even respond to me there. So you can kind of tell whether somebody's on LinkedIn just based on things that they've posted or reacted to. So you want to make sure that you're reaching out to people that are on LinkedIn, because just because they have a profile doesn't mean they do anything with it.
And then
Any, oh, there's another one. Yep.
yeah, for any new experience you have, should you post it as well on LinkedIn or just add it? You can definitely post it if that is what you would like to do. Yeah, and then just sharing your experience for people to see, and maybe people have questions. It'll start conversation sometimes. So you can definitely make a post. Do you have anything more to add to that, Noel?
Nope. We could probably go to the next slides.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Do you want to share them and I can talk to them since
Let
you're
me find this presentation. I don't know where it went.
here? I think I can get there. I'll do it. All right. So here are just some recommendations that we have as we close out here. So you want to definitely make the necessary changes to your resume and schedule an appointment with your Career Center if it's available. So I know not everybody is a Santa Clara student here. Our appointments are in Handshake, and we have appointments listed out 4 weeks in advance. So there should be plenty to choose from right now. As the quarter gets closer, it will get busier and harder, and that's probably true for other schools as well. So now's the time to seize the moment. Definitely get some feedback, and get some feedback from more than just the Career Center. And then we suggest that you create or make updates or changes to your LinkedIn profile and get feedback on them. So there's a LinkedIn checklist in the information in our job prep toolkit, so you can check that out. You might want to connect with people that you know so that you build more connections if you need to do that, and then potentially join some professional networking groups. And then maybe there are some organizations that interest you. So if you look at other people's profiles and you see they're in some organizations that are interesting to you, you might want to consider joining those as well. And then again, just review our resources on the Career Center website. So those are the things that we recommend as next steps. And then we'd just like you to take a minute to maybe write, about one thing you learned and one action you'll take. And we'd be open to having anybody share something that they'd like to share, either in the chat or if you want to take yourself off mute too, either one of those. And then with that, we'll give you a minute to do that, and we'll wrap up. Is there anybody who'd like to share something or ask a question at this point? All right, it looks like Yes, Carol, you can stay on. Great. All right, well then we'll let you go and have a great rest of your summer. If you've already gone back to school, good luck with your next semester. We don't start for a while, so we're getting ready for everybody to come back in September. Thank you all so much. We really appreciate your time and your attention and questions.
Thank you.